This music is probably one of the most famous pieces by Beethoven, the Moonlight Sonata. Whenever I hear it, I feel like I'm transported to another dimension. It's like I'm able to access and understand a new aspect of reality. It is truly a transcendent experience. I think in our modern society, mired in our day to day life, we take these experiences for granted and never really realize how amazing it is that our brain is capable to reach these levels of transcendent experiences. You can consider a small thought experiment to illustrate this idea. Imagine a conscious alien species that comes to Earth and is introduced to this piece of music. Now try to imagine the scenario that this conscious alien species, when introduced to this amazing Moonlight Sonata piece of Beethoven, is not able to enjoy it, nor is able to understand what is so special about it. Imagine what if for this alien species there is no difference between random noise coming from the TV and a piece like this that we call transcendent. I think if we think about it, the implications are truly terrifying. It means the source of the transcendent experience is not just the music, but the music's impact on our unconscious mind that is bringing forth these feelings of almost spiritual nature. If the source of the experience was self contained in the piece itself, the alien species would have no problem listening to it. It would imply that our brain is capable to generate these transcendent experiences and give us a portal to understand deeper layers of reality. I think the fatal error that we have made in our modern society is that we think we can intellectually criticize these transcendent experiences, which in reality emerge and are thirst forth from the unconscious mind of an individual. Moonlight Sonata would always transport me to a transcendent experience, no matter how much I criticize it intellectually. I took this example of music because it is almost a universal transcendent experience, no matter what your religious belief systems are. But the point I wanted to make was that our unconscious is capable of giving us a glimpse of these transcendent state, and the great religions of the world were supposed to be a bridge to these experiences. But unfortunately, the religions of the world have failed us. They have become what Jung called creeds. A group of people consisting of individuals following rituals and social rules merely out of habit without any reflection. For creeds, religion is no longer a portal for transcendent experiences, but a mere social event. It consists of identical individuals with blind, unreflecting beliefs. When the intellectuals see the people in creeds following rituals out of mere habit and social convention, they can't help but become cynical. They have no choice but to be torn between the absurdity of blind belief in religious axioms or the spiritual emptiness of science. There's this famous passage in the Bible that I really like. "Do you understand what you're reading?" And he said, "How can I, unless someone guides me?" Our understanding about religion has become archaic and failed to keep up with the changes in the spiritual mood of the era. Hence, the modern man only sees two paths ahead of him: either to accept the dogmas of the creeds or completely disregard the stories and become an atheist. But a third path is now necessary to be discussed. Instead of throwing religion away completely like the atheist movement, we need to understand religious stories symbolically. Religious stories aren't literal truths like the creeds want us to believe. They are an attempt to represent reality symbolically. Religion consists of both the doctrinal content that have become archaic and the transcendent content. Our next step in the evolution of consciousness would be to eliminate the doctrinal content and integrating the transcendent contents into our understanding of life. There was never an actual Garden of Eden. What it really represents is the condition of human beings before we were self-conscious, unaware of our vulnerabilities, and the fact that we would die one day. We were living in a state of paradise. Then we developed consciousness and were thrown away from the Garden of Eden, aware of our own mortality and our state of being doomed to suffer. Human knowledge consists essentially in the constant adaptation of the primordial patterns of ideas that are given to us a priori. These need certain modifications because in their original form they are suited to an archaic mode of life but not to the demands of a specifically differentiated environment. If the flow of instinctive dynamism in our life is to be maintained as is absolutely necessary for our existence, then it is imperative that we remold these archetypical forms into ideas which are adequate to the challenges of the present. A quote by Jung in his book, The Undiscovered Self. As modern people, we are bombarded by science to devalue the subjectivity of our experiences and any inner feelings as simple manifestations of our animal instincts that we need to overcome. For science, subjectivity is devoid of any useful information and is a mere unwanted residue of our animal origin. I think that's a fatal error of the times we live in. No matter what intellectual criticisms you might provide to the transcendent experiences of Moonlight Sonata that you and I feel, you can't deny the reality of it. Here is another quote by Jung that I really love. Our time has committed a fatal error. We believe we can criticize the facts of religion intellectually. Like Laplace, we think God is a hypothesis that can be subjected to intellectual treatment, to be affirmed or denied. We completely forget that the reason mankind believes in the daemon has nothing whatever to do with external factors, but is simply due to a naive awareness of the tremendous inner effect of autonomous fragmentary systems. This effect is not abolished by criticizing it, or rather the name we have given it, or by describing the name as false. The effect is collectively present all the time. The autonomous systems are always at work, for the fundamental structures of the unconscious is not affected by the deviations of our ephemeral consciousness. I believe if there is no inner light to guide us, we are vulnerable to possession by ideologies of fascism and communism. If we devalue our inner source of transcendence, we have nothing to guide us and rely on. Hence, instead of questioning the existence of these transcendent experiences, we need to change our understanding of their origins. We need to understand these experiences as thirsting forth from our unconscious. They are not trying to represent the external reality for you. They are trying to give you access to these portals of transcendence that you already possess. Religious stories are supposed to activate our deep seated instincts and provide us a doorway to the religious experiences emerging through our unconscious. We try to activate our instincts via images and motifs and stories. Like a simulator in an airplane, these stories are simulating for you conditions so that while reading and imagining them, you might be able to activate those instincts within you. Here is how Jung associates modern art with this idea. An excellent example of this is modern art. Though seeming to deal with aesthetic problems, it is really performing a work of psychological education on the public by breaking down and destroying their previous aesthetic views of what is beautiful in form and meaningful in content. The pleasingness of the artistic product is replaced by chill abstractions of the most subjective nature, which brusquely slam the door on the naive and romantic delight in the senses and their obligatory love for the object. This tells us, in plain and universal language, that the prophetic spirit of art has turned away from the old object relationship towards the, at least for the time being, dark chaos of subjectivism. For Jung, modern art is the manifestation of the deep longing in individuals to have the subjective connection with the universe, which is beyond and deeper than the surface level conscious feelings that serve and delight only the naive senses. But in the end, for me, learning about all this is so important because for the first time in my life, I started to see a well-formed, coherent argument about why I should follow my instincts and intuitions and my inner voice. Up until now, they have been so devalued and degraded by science by calling it subjective and a mere animal residue of my instincts, and by the religions as egotism and pride. For the first time, it gave me the permission to rely on the guiding light that was already inside me, to use as clairvoyance for the journey ahead. Man hasn't realized that whatever is emanating from the unconscious is probably more real than any external observations he is taught and observes. I will close this video by quoting Jung as to what is one of the ideal goals of any therapeutic relationship. As the dialectical discussion proceeds, a point is reached when an evaluation of these individual impulses becomes necessary. By that time, the patient should have acquired enough certainty of judgment to enable him to act on his own insight and decision and not from the mere wish to copy convention, even if he happens to agree with the collective opinion. Unless he stands firmly on his own feet, the so-called objective values proffered him nothing, since they then only serve as a substitute for character and so help to suppress his individuality.